Hey, hi everyone! I'm not sure what I'm gonna call this video yet, but it's something to do with my identity now and things that I have been grateful for my Christian upbringing and environment, and things that I'm not so grateful for. Just me reflecting on the things that I have learned and the person that I am. So since becoming ex-Christian, I've noticed that there's a lot of places that I can go, such as on Reddit or on YouTube, where there are people who are like-minded and have been through similar things. So ex-Christians, atheists, that kind of thing. I've noticed a lot of these outlets can be quite negative and focus on the really bad parts of Christianity. Some channels even just make fun of Christians, and I have never wanted that for my channel. I want this to be a really safe space for anyone to come. I'm not going to censor my genuine opinions, and I'm not going to make light of things that might have hurt me or hurt other people, but I'm not going to ever intentionally be malicious or focus just on the bad things just because I want to. That's not my intention at all. I definitely have a lot of criticisms, otherwise I wouldn't be on this side of the fence now. But yeah, I just want to put that out there, and that's why I wanted to do this video, to reflect on both the good and the bad. So right off the bat, I grew up in a very Christian environment. Christian family, and that's not just my immediate family, but I would say 90% of my extended family. We were always very involved in church, so we were on the music team as a family ever since I was a kid. And on top of that, I went to a Christian school, I went to youth groups, my parents had a Bible study group, and then as I got older, I had a Bible study group. I didn't know many people who weren't Christian growing up. So for me, it was just normal. I distinctly remember the first time that I encountered, as a kid, someone who wasn't a Christian, and it really confused me. My dad was part of a volleyball team club, and I used to often go with him to his games when I was a kid, because I enjoyed, well, I didn't really enjoy watching, but a lot of their kids, like his team members' kids, used to go as well, and we would run around the sports centre. And I remember meeting a girl, and I was sitting down and talking to her, and I was probably like 8 years old or something, and she was like, "Oh, what are you doing this week?" And I was like, "Oh, we're going to Bible study tomorrow night." And she was like, "What's Bible study?" And I just remember my little 8-year-old brain just like malfunctioning, and I didn't know how to respond. I was like, you read the Bible. This girl doesn't know what the Bible is. It's a bit weird. Yeah, I had a very, very Christian upbringing. So I think as we get older, we start to obviously reflect on the ways that our parents raised us, or what we liked about school, what we didn't like about school. We hopefully reflect on ourselves and the parts of our personalities that we think need more work, and the bits that we love about our personalities as well. Reflection, I think, is a very important part of growing up, and it's a very important part of being an adult and continually learning and trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I think for a lot of people who have come out of a particular religion, find it's a very intense process, and there is a lot of what people call deconstructing, and basically just going through everything you believe, stripping it bare down to the concrete, and then building back up the bits that you want to keep, and not putting back the things that you don't agree with or don't want to keep. So I definitely did that, and obviously am now not a Christian, but in saying that, I don't want to make it seem like growing up a Christian was an absolutely horrible experience, because like personally for me, it was, I think, an overwhelmingly positive experience to grow up in the way, at least, that I did. I think I've had a very fortunate upbringing. Let's start with things that I love about my Christian upbringing. Before I get into it, I think it's important to note as well that just because I say Christian upbringing doesn't mean that other people's Christian upbringings are the same. It's really hard for me to know what is part of dad's personality or mum's personality and what is their Christian influence on their personality. Like that starts to get very complicated. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so the first one is community. This is obviously going to be very different for everyone, but I really, really loved my Christian community. I still do. I still watch church online sometimes just to see familiar faces. Overall, my church community that I grew up in was very accepting, very kind, very thoughtful, very community oriented. I think particularly for me, it was really good that I went to a church because I didn't have a lot of extended family who lived near me. I didn't grow up with grandparents around. For me, it was really beneficial because there are so many different ages and stages at church. So I was interacting with babies, little kids, and then obviously older people, and sort of having these stand-in grandparents and stand-in aunts. And I just think that's such a wonderful thing for kids to grow up in an environment where they're surrounded by lots of people and lots of people of different ages. It's kind of rare these days to be part of a community like that. For me, it really does feel like a family. It still feels like a family. Another thing that I think was beneficial, which I think comes with a lot of different religions, is reflection on yourself with the intention of bettering oneself. Now, the ways that Christianity sometimes goes about bettering yourself is not always healthy, and the ways in which you need to be better might not be healthy, but I think in general, growing up in a household that encouraged me to reflect on myself and the way that I interact with the world, and reading devotionals and reflecting on bits of the Bible that encourage you to be selfless and kind, I think made me a much more thoughtful person, especially from a young age. If you get in the habit of sort of meditating, I guess is what it is, you can bring that into your adult life and continue to reflect. And yeah, so I think that was really positive. The community that I grew up in, if you want like a denomination to think about, we're technically brethren, not the long skirt hatted brethren, where they're wearing Ugg boots to church kind of brethren. I grew up in a community and in a family that just had a big heart for loving other people, and not just people within the group, but I know particularly my church does a lot of community outreach and does a lot to help people within the community. Very practical, regular care of the community, which I really appreciate. And yeah, just having that outward focus of loving others. Definitely the ways in which people view love can be different. I think love is a little bit subjective, but overall I think that I grew up in quite a positive environment when it came to loving other people. I think I'm naturally quite a selfish person. I think that my parents and my Christian upbringing definitely helped me to be more selfless. The last one that I have is focus on learning. This will definitely differ depending on the kind of Christian community we're brought up in, but again, I think mine was quite unique in that the Christians I was surrounded by were generally the ones that couldn't fit in other churches. Our church had a bit of a reputation for being the rebel church. People who had usually kind of different ideas about the Bible and God tended to come to our church, and I think it made it a very unique pool of people. And I never felt like any question was heretical. I never felt like pursuing knowledge was a bad thing in that church. It had a lot of, I guess, people who were very scientifically minded, and that provided a space where I could ask questions and discuss things that I tried to bring up in other groups, in other Christian groups, and got shut down very quickly. Maybe I'll tell some of those stories. I really love uni and lectures and sermons. Any sort of format where someone is just telling me information, I really thrive in that kind of environment. So I really enjoyed that aspect of church as well, the sermons, because I'm a nerd. Okay, so that's all the positive things that I really thought about and am grateful for my upbringing. And now I'm going to get into the things that I think have been kind of harmful for me, and things in Christianity that I think can be harmful to people. So the first one is looking outwards for validation, purpose, and meaning. There is so much to unpack. So I think right off of the bat, it's a two-sided coin, because you get some Christians that say we are inherently divine and good and God inspired, made in his image. And then you get Christians that say, but we have fallen, we're tainted, we're like a shattered mirror. I heard that one quite a bit. We're like a reflection of God, but we're broken, tainted by sin and naturally evil. And I've actually been reading a really good book that I might do a review on soon, once I finished it, which tackles these kinds of ideas about, is a human innately bad or good? But in general, I find even with the people who say that we are innately good, there is a massive focus on how bad we are and how broken we are and how everything we do is tainted by sin. And the whole gospel message is we are not good enough for God. He created us, but we let sin into our lives and we are not good enough for God. So we are deserving of hell. This kind of view of myself, I can only speak for myself, but having this view of myself growing up made me feel innately bad, and I was constantly seeking the approval of God, constantly wanting to please him, always feeling bad because I felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't do it in a righteous way. I never felt like I personally, on my own, was good enough. Now, Christians will say, you're good enough because of Jesus, but that's not you being good enough. That's Jesus being good enough and taking your place. You, on your own, are still not good enough for God. Like, let that sink in. To grow up with that kind of mindset, that's going to do all kinds of things to you. And for me, I've noticed that I seek the validation of others. I need people to like me, and if they don't, I get very anxious. I can't sleep. I figure out millions of ways to try and get people to like me. I never feel good enough on my own, and that's something that I'm trying to learn, is to feel good enough just on my own and to not focus so much on the bad. As I said before, it is good to reflect on yourself, and it's equally as stupid to say that we're all good and that we never do bad things. But yeah, it's just as harmful to say that we are bad and can never be good enough. I think on top of that, like just as an addition, is constantly being reminded that, like even from a kid, from a child, being reminded that I am the reason that Jesus suffered immeasurable pain and died on the cross. Not only are you deserving of hell, but you are the reason that Jesus was in so much pain and died. Was just so bad for me and for my anxiety again, because I hate causing people pain. I hate making people feel bad. So growing up feeling like I was the reason that the person I loved the most in the world died, yeah, that was not great. Focus on the afterlife. This one is probably the one that makes me the most angry. I don't get angry about my Christian upbringing a lot, but this one probably makes me the most angry, because I, up until 23 years old, fully believed in heaven, fully believed in an afterlife, and thought that I would be meeting my grandma, who I have never met before. Since I was a kid, I prayed for God to take us to heaven because I wanted to meet her. And I feel like it's just a bigger version of someone telling you Santa's not real. Like, as a kid, being told Santa's not real was devastating. As an adult, realizing that there's no evidence and that it's more than likely that it's not true, and basically like realizing that you're not going to meet people who you really wanted to, or see people again who you really wanted to, was really devastating for me. Like, it actually makes me tear up thinking about it, because yeah, I really believed it. I wholeheartedly believed in the afterlife, and now I have had to sort of come to terms with the fact that it's not true. And that kind of sucks a lot. It's made me anxious because I always thought I had a lot of time, and now I'm like a quarter of the way through my life. Look, again, I'm saying I'm agnostic. Like, I'm not saying that there's no possible way that the spiritual realm can exist, but I'm saying that there's no evidence that it does, and there's no reason for me to believe that it exists. Like, I don't believe Valhalla exists, for example. People get kind of weird when I say that I want evidence and proof for things, but I mean, we all do in some way in some areas of our lives, right? I think another thing that was not good about believing in the afterlife is that I think it really takes over some Christians. It really makes you ignore this life. You prioritize the next life so much that you're not actually focused on meeting the needs of people now, here and now. I think I can see this the most in like climate change. There have been actual Christians who have said things like that I know that have said, oh, you know, climate change must be in God's plan, or, you know, he's coming back and he's going to give us a whole new earth anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Like, if your God isn't real and he's not coming back to fix this earth, then we're in some deep trouble. We're in some deep trouble, and that's scary. Like, we need to look after this planet. We need to look after people here and now and love people here and now. This kind of ties in with, I sacrificed a lot of good things, or put on hold a lot of good things in my life, because the Bible tells us that we should sacrifice the things that we love now to better the kingdom of God, because this life is all but a blink. You know, it doesn't actually matter compared to what you're going to get when you die and live forever in bliss. Like, this life is nothing, so you may as well give up the things that make you happy in order to serve God. I was too focused on other things, trying to make God happy, which, again, if God is not real, you've spent your whole life working for this person who doesn't exist, and denying yourself the time that you have here on earth to do the things that you love and to be with the people that you love and all of that kind of thing, which then ties into relationships. I know for me personally, I was very judgmental towards other Christians. The Bible tells us to judge other Christians. It truly does. I'll put it up on the screen. And if you do not meet the standards of being a good Christian, the Bible also gives you permission to exclude that person from your life, and it can destroy relationships and families. So this is when putting words written in a book 2,000 years ago comes before loving your family and loving your friends. Obviously, this can be applied to LGBTQ plus people who have been kicked out of their families and that kind of thing because of, again, what the Bible says. Another way in which I think this has sort of hurt my relationships with people is when I was a Christian and I would meet a new friend and that friend was not a Christian. I didn't focus so much on having a meaningful, deep relationship with that person and learning from them. I focused on, what can I do to get this person to come to church? What can I do to get them saved? Because when you believe that hell is real and you believe that God is the best thing ever, and the Bible tells you to do the best that you can to save people, your relationships with unbelievers can get very shallow. And even if you try to make them not shallow, there's always that lingering judgment, that lingering fear, that lingering, I just really want to talk about Jesus right now. And that can ruin relationships with people. It's a very imbalanced way to approach a relationship. Yeah, and I do think that a lot of the Christian circles that I was within were very judgmental, and I constantly felt judged by other Christians. I was constantly judging other Christians, all within the guise of wanting to, what do they do? Iron sharpening iron, calling people out on their sin, that's what they call it, to save them from the devil. It just makes for kind of a tense environment sometimes and not the best relationships. Okay, number 4 is sexuality, and this one is kind of pretty obvious, I would hope. going to be doing a whole video on this with my friend Rebecca, so keep an eye out for that one. And the last one is 5, not trusting myself. This one is also kind of personal, and I'm not going to get into it a whole heap, but that self-sacrificial love is touted as being the pillar of being a good Christian. Jesus died for you. Like, he trumps anything that you do. If Jesus died for you and loved you even though you were a sinner, that's a Bible verse, then how much more should we sacrifice for other people? Growing up in a Christian society, sounds like such an amazing thing, to be so self-sacrificial for other people, to always put the needs of others before your own. And this can certainly lead to really good things, and it's admirable when someone can put aside their own needs for someone else. You see this in parents all the time, and it's a beautiful thing. It stops becoming beautiful when your giving hurts you. Again, Christians will say give till it hurts. This caused me to be in not one but 2 very toxic relationships, one a lot worse than the other. My mental health just took a complete dive because of these relationships, and I'm sure a lot of you people have been in situations where you feel like you are giving and giving and giving, and the other person is just taking advantage of you. And I think I made a lot of progress when I finally said enough is enough and just cut the person out of my life. And it was one of the hardest things I've had to do. It hurt like hell. And I still think about that person. Like, I still wanted to love that person and give them everything, but you can't, at least for me, you can't give until you waste away. So I think that was quite harmful for me, growing up in an environment where being so self-sacrificial that even dying for someone else is the most righteous thing to do is just not healthy in most circumstances at all, and it allows people to take advantage of you, and I will not be taken advantage of anymore. I'm working to have a better relationship with myself, trusting my own intuition, knowing when things feel right, knowing when things don't feel right, and being willing to stand up for myself. Still being kind, hopefully, in the process, but I think it's okay to stand up for yourself and to love yourself first, to put yourself first sometimes. That doesn't mean you're selfish, it means that you're looking after the person you spend the most time with. I mean, I have to live in here, you know? I want it to be a nice place. Okay, so that's all that I have for you guys today. I just like to end that saying that no one's upbringing is perfect. Everyone has baggage depending on when they're from, whether you grew up an atheist, whether you grew up Buddhist, whatever your circumstances, we all come away with things that we wish we hadn't gone through. But I try to be an eternal optimist, and I think that we always have the power to reflect on the things that have happened and see how we can grow from them and be better. And yeah, I hope no one sees this as me bashing my upbringing or anyone who I love, but yeah, as I said, I'm just being honest. This is just my channel. These are the things that I've been thinking about. So if you guys liked it, please give it a like and please subscribe. Let me know down below your thoughts and comments, and as always, if you want to contact me directly, you can find me on Instagram. That's _NaomiClaire_, and you can message me there directly if you would like to. Okay, bye.